If I told you that someone with 6 losses in a row was booked to fight somebody that had 6 wins in a row, you would probably tell me that it was ruthless matchmaking by the UFC. But let me tell you why this is perfect matchmaking and why Tony versus Paddy is not as unfair as we think. I'm Wyatt, and this is Fight Society. All right, guys, so UFC 296, Tony Ferguson versus Paddy Pimblett just got announced. And everyone's jerk reaction here is Tony's on the way out, Tony's washed up, and they're feeding Paddy somebody easy. It's really not that simple. And Tony is not that outmatched in this fight. Tony Ferguson has shown, even in his last fight, that he can still put people down. He dropped Bobby Green. He dropped Michael Chandler, I believe, 2 fights ago. This narrative that Tony's completely done is not true. Tony has fought the best of the best. When you have losses to people like Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, it's so hard to say that somebody's washed up when they've lost to those guys, even if it has been 6 in a row. You guys might call me crazy here. I'm not saying he's going to be a world title challenger anymore, but give the guy a shot, okay? Paddy is completely unproven. I mean, we all know he got beat by an unranked guy in Jared Gordon, chin up in the air, getting caught with left hooks over and over and over again. His striking is not there. The grappling obviously is, but the striking is not where he needs to be an elite lightweight. And Tony is somebody that's been there before. Tony's been in there with the best of the best, top killers, and Paddy was in Cage Warriors. Not to say that that's not a good organization. That's a great organization that's created UFC champs. But Paddy went from Cage Warriors and he got fed a few really, really not good opponents like Luigi Vendramini, and loses but wins to Jared Gordon. And now we're putting him up against Tony. So the optics here are that Tony is a sacrificial lamb to the new star. I really don't think that this is a fair criticism of Tony or a fair statement on the matchmaking here, because Tony has shown the ability to knock people down. Tony has shown the ability to stay in tough fights and get through tough rounds. I know that Tony's slow. I understand that he is not the win streak Tony, prime Tony. I know that that's not the guy we're seeing anymore. But my personal opinion, Paddy is just unpolished. And while Tony might be fading, he had those tools at one point. I think that the experience Tony has against top guys, and I think that Paddy's inactivity and lack of tough opponents, to be honest, is going to make this fight way more even than people think. And honestly, if Tony wins this fight, we're talking about harder fights for him, which most of us don't want to see. But the idea out here that Paddy is going to just run through Tony, or that this is some gift matchup for Paddy, is just not true. I think that's disrespectful to Tony Ferguson, and I think that's giving too much respect to Paddy, because Paddy hasn't done anything, guys. I'll say that the first round will be very, very telling, because we'll see if Tony has any speed left to give. We'll see how Paddy looks coming off of his injury. I know he's kind of got his weight under control, whereas he used to get really bloated outside of fight camp. What people are saying here about Tony being completely outmatched here is not true. I know we're not going to get prime Tony back, but I want to see people show some respect for the guy that he was and the guy that he still is, even if we can't see it all the time. That he just knocked down Bobby Green, and now Bobby Green's in a main event against Grant Dawson, okay? He's knocking down guys that are still main eventing, and he's putting up good fights. I know he got choked to sleep. I know Michael Chandler put him out, but these are tough guys. And aside from the matchmaking, I think that this probably should be it for Tony. I think that this is actually a winnable fight against a pretty good opponent right now. I mean, I'm not saying Paddy's great, but he's not nobody. They're not feeding him some prelim guy that's making his debut. I think that this is a good retirement fight. UFC 296, they're in Vegas. Give Tony the send-off that they just gave Robbie Lawler during International Fight Week. That's basically it for this video, guys. Tony Ferguson versus Paddy Pimblett. I actually don't hate it. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay up to date with our most recent videos. If you're interested in more content from me, go check out my weekly comedy podcast, the Hissyfit podcast, and go check out my own personal page, Wyatt's World. Go watch this suggested video, and I'll see you next time.